Hey everybody, it's Sean. I'm going to be walking you through a series of videos that will teach you how to create tables or charts like this in InDesign. It's going to be a few videos long because we're going to be going through several different stages from a very basic beginner's chart or table, graduating up to a more complicated table like this where there's actually table styles and cell styles being applied, as well as paragraph styles and character styles. So with that being said, let's just jump on in and get going. Now, this is a example document that we will be graduating up to. What I would like to do is actually work in this Harriet Meets short document that we built not too long ago. You guys should have this project file still. If you don't, I've included the final version, my version of it, for you guys to work off of. So whichever one you feel most comfortable with. But what I'd like you guys to do is go up here to your Pages panel and actually add in a new page. We're actually just going to add in a new spread because I like the look of it better. And one thing I'm going to say as we jump on into this tutorial is it's recycling day on my street and the garbage truck is like right outside of my house. So if you hear it or any incessant beeping, I do apologize. But back to charts and graphs. We're going to switch out of preview mode into our work mode by hitting W. And now we are left with this page. It has a footer on it, page 6, and we are going to drag out a new text frame to just above the footer. Maybe something, hold on. InDesign doesn't like drawing text frames for me recently. It keeps switching me back to the selection tool. I don't know why. I don't really get what's going on here. Okay, great. Here we go. So we have our text frame, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click. I'm going to hit fill with placeholder text, and it wants to use a subheading paragraph style, which I don't want it to be. I'd like to switch this over to our body copy. Great. And now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go under text frame options, right click text frame options. And we are going to increase the number of columns up to 3. That way it matches the rest of our document and everything looks good. Cool. We can shrink this in just a little bit. Lovely. And I'm just going to find a paragraph break. It'll be different for me than it will be for you guys. And I'm just going to type in a mini title, financial outlook. Let's highlight that and apply our subheading to it. Cool. Now what you can do actually, and this is going to be pretty great, find another spot that looks good for a new paragraph. Return it twice so that you're left with a blank line in here. I'm just going to quickly come up to type and hit show hidden characters. Maybe it'll be a bit easier for you guys to see where my returns are. And what we can actually do here is we can go up to table and insert table. When we go to insert a table, you'll notice this dialog box shows up. Yours might have, I think the default is 3 and 3. What I'd like to do for now is I'd like to make 5 rows and 2 columns. This is just going to be a very basic table to start out with. We don't need to worry about header rows or footer rows right now because I'll walk you guys through that as we get into our more complicated demos later on. So let's hit OK. And now you can see right out the gate, we have a sort of very basic gray, sort of bland looking table with no information. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in a title of quarterly outlook. I'm going to change that back over to body copy. And I would like this top row here to all be one section. So what you might notice is when you select your type, you're only highlighting the typography here. And when you go and select, when you drag your cursor across multiple cells, it'll highlight the whole cell. And this is very important to understand the difference between editing type and editing cells when you're working with a table. There's just the smallest difference, but they make a huge impact on the overall operations of everything. And I want to merge these two cells. So we can come up here to our top menu, and you see this little icon that looks like a present. It has a box with a line and an X through it. This is merge cells. And if we click on it, it will merge the cell. So now we're left with one really long cell up here. And what I can do now is I can come down to these other text boxes and I can type in Q1. Wow, this whole thing just really wants to use our subheading style, which I don't want it to use. So before we start populating this, if you drag your cursor to the top left, you'll notice your cursor turns into this diagonal arrow. If we click once, it will highlight the whole table, and we can just switch it over to our body copy style. And now we'll be using body copy type for everything instead of this subheading type. So we can begin populating these cells again. So we can hit Q1 for the top one, Q2, and then Q3 and Q4. Great. And we can just type in a random dollar value. I'm going to type in what I think this fictional butcher shop probably made in each quarter. So don't mind me. This is a little bit tedious, but gets the job done. Terrific. So now we have our table populated, and it's time to sort of start applying some design decisions to it, because if we look at this table right now, that's really boring. It sticks out like a sore thumb, and I'm just not really overall a big fan of it. So what we can do here is we can click so that we are back within the bounds of our table, and we can start making decisions about strokes and borders. What I would like to do is I'd like to go up to Window, I'd like to go to Styles, and I'd like to click on Table Styles. That should bring up a floating menu here for you guys. And you'll notice that the Table Styles box has a bunch of different options. It sort of has a window where you can format all sorts of things, sort of the amount of rows, the amount of columns, the orientation of type, and the sort of placement of type within your cells, and space above, around every single cell. You have table styles and you have cell styles. So we're going to be looking at table styles really quick. Let's just create a new one and jump right in. And the first thing that I would like to do is go to table setup, and table border, I'd like to just hit 0. So now, sorry, my voice cracked. Wow. So now we have no border, but we still have these interior strokes. And personally, I'm not a huge fan of these. So we sort of have to look at getting rid of them. How are we going to get rid of them? Well, I will show you. So we can just hit OK and get out of table styles for a second. What we can do is, if this is easier for you guys, you can switch back into your actual work mode instead of preview mode like I like to work in. So when you get rid of the strokes, one thing you'll notice is it kind of becomes tricky to sort of see when you can apply this sort of select all arrow. But when you select all, what I would like to draw your attention to is two different places. The stroke panel over here, or up at the top up here. You'll notice that there's a diagram of your chart, essentially, and it has these blue lines and it has these black lines. The blue lines represent the lines that you have selected. The black lines represent the lines that are not selected. Both of these diagrams are extremely tedious to have to use. You have to be very specific and very close in order to select the lines that you would like to be able to manipulate. I'm using a mouse. It's very easy if you have a mouse, but I can imagine if you're just using a trackpad, it's going to kind of be a little bit tedious and tricky. You might select the wrong things. So just something to be mindful of. Now, the outer lines that it already has selected for us, I don't really need to use these. I don't want to adjust them. We just went and took away the strokes for a reason. What I do want to adjust though are these interior stroke lines. Right now you can see that they have a stroke width of 1 point, and I'd like to get rid of them completely. Terrific. So now you can see we have no strokes. You can tell that there's these these thin blue lines. They represent the bounds of your cells, but they don't actually show up when you hit preview. So what we can do now is we can jump back into our table styles, and we can go to row strokes, alternating pattern, every other row. We can leave the stroke weight at 1. We should be able to hit OK. Just double check here that it actually applied. Row strokes, yep. And let's take a look and see if that actually took effect. Okay, it did not. And I think the reason why it did not take effect is because we just told our graph not to have any strokes whatsoever. So by selecting your table one more time, you can go into your stroke panel and make sure you only have the middle stroke selected and beef that back up to 1. And let's just double check here. All right, cool. So we have our strokes back. Not a big deal. The next thing that we can do is select our whole graph again. Let's go into table styles. We can go down to fills, and we can set an alternating fill pattern to be every other row. And you can just barely tell that it is applying the fill in here. You can see this is a lighter gray, this is a solid black, followed by lighter gray, black, gray. I don't want our title to be filled though. So what you can actually do in here is you can tell it to skip the first line, or skip the first row in this case, and it will jump the fill down 1, and it'll start the alternating pattern, starting with the first row of your actual data point. So let's hit OK. And boom. Okay, let's just take a look here, hit W. So we're starting to get a bit more of a nicely formatted table. It's looking all right. I am going to jump back out of preview mode into work mode. And what I would like to do now actually is start applying some color and stylistic options. So selecting the title type, not the whole cell, but just the title itself. I'd like to go under paragraph styles. And I think I'd like to use, actually none of these are really going to format very well. What we're going to do is we're just going to go up to our color selection, and I'm just going to apply the red color swatch here. That looks good. I don't necessarily want to detract from the actual subtitle, so I'm not going to make this all caps. I'm not going to put an underline or make it bold. I'll just leave it like that. One thing that I would like to do though is change the color of the alternating fill. And to do that, we can go back into paragraph or into table styles, down to fills, and we can select our blue color. I'm just going to hit OK and see what that looks like really quickly. That looks okay. Yeah, not bad. But now that we're getting more into our design decisions, I am going to actually get rid of all of the strokes. Don't mind me, I know I'm very all over the place, and I make a lot of decisions as I design on the fly. Okay, cool. So let's see how this looks in the grand scheme of our page. I like that. I think that that is a subtle chart within the middle of a block of type. I think that it flows well, it has the same colors as the rest of our document, and it doesn't distract too much from the things around it, but it provides you with the amount of information that you need. One last thing that I would like to sort of show you guys how to do is Q1 and Q2 through 4. They don't need this big of a cell. It's kind of a little awkward and clunky. So what we can do is if you drag your cursor just over the line of the column here, you can grab it and actually drag it in. And you can see that shrinks the size of the cell where the quarter numbers belong. And then the next thing that we have to do is drag the outside border to the edge of our column here within the margin, and extend it so that it matches up with the rest of our typography. And now we have something that looks a little bit more in line with sort of how your eye might read it. It's up to you whether or not you like that design change or not. I just wanted to show you guys how to be able to adjust the width of a cell, of a whole column, so that you'll have greater control when you build a more complex graph. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is how to build a very basic chart from scratch within a text frame in InDesign. And the next video we'll be going over some more complicated steps, like how to import text and type and data from Excel and Word, and format a table from that instead of working from scratch. I'll catch you guys in the next video. See you then.